So, Mike, do you remember that video we did, which EPL team to follow?
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
Well, here's another one.
Cos and I are back, and we're going to do something a little bit different to the other one because we don't like repeating ourselves. It's just not our thing. We've been getting lots of feedback, and people find it really hard to pick a Premier League team. We tried to make it easy, Cos, in that last video that we made, but I think we need another video now.
Well, we tried to sell the club to you.
Yes.
And for a variety of reasons, it didn't work out so well. We made a couple of errors. So we're taking a different approach this time.
Plus, half those teams are pretty much not there anymore, which is part of the errors that we made. But we digress. So there's 20 teams in the Premier League. Each season, those teams change, and the season after that, they change again. And 4 seasons later, half the team are gone. Picking a team can be really hard, but the temptation is to just go for the top teams. We spoke about the top 6 in our last video, but that's become sort of a top, 8, 10 now? It's just... it keeps evolving. There's more to it though than the top 6. The Premier League is a league of leagues, and it has a lot of battles going on in it that a lot of people aren't aware of. We sort of touched on it in our last video. We're going to go into a little bit more depth with it now and just show you all the little battles that are going on around the league that pretty much are the foundation for the entire English football system. Anything to add to that, Cos?
They should let the Scottish League in the Premier League, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
Last time we started from the top, but this time we're going to start from the most brutal battle of them all, the relegation battle. It's
probably the most emotional battle as well.
There's no probably about it. It is definitely the most emotional. Right, a little bit of background. Hopefully you already know all this. Part of the foundation of the entire English system, and most systems across Europe as well, obviously, is the relegation system. 3 teams go out, 3 teams come in.
It's very exciting.
So naturally, every season there's a race for these 3 spots, or rather, sort of a race not to finish in these 3 spots. I don't know, a race to run from these 3 spots.
You don't want to be a snail.
No.
Yeah.
No, slow and steady doesn't get you through in this race. The first 3 candidates in this race are the newly promoted teams from last season: Norwich,
Watford, and Brentford.
Love them, Brentford. Then there's a bunch of other teams, and if we're perfectly honest, every team goes into the relegation battle at the start of the season. It's just nothing safe, except for maybe the elites. But
you wouldn't expect the elites to go to the relegation, but well, it has happened.
It has.
But that's the thing.
It usually takes a season for that to happen.
The gap between the top and the bottom is never as big as it seems.
No,
and that's why,
especially now,
and that's why you can see teams that did well last season go into the relegation battle.
So let's go into what to expect in the relegation battle.
Brawls. Fans are back. It's very emotional.
It is. The brawls aren't going to be having on the pitch, probably.
No.
So when the new teams come up, usually there's one team that just dominates the championship, which is the second tier. Anything can happen for this team. Then, of course, there's the team that comes second. Sometimes there's a massive gap between second and third, and there's sort of just you can tell that they're more ready than the rest for the Premier League. And then you have a side that comes up through the playoffs, and as I like to think of it, it's not the top 3 teams that come up, it's the top 2 plus the best one at knockout competitions.
It is a knockout competition.
Yeah, it's a different kettle of fish.
And quite often that team does better than the 2 promoted teams as well. So
just because they can do those grinding results as well, which is obviously necessary when your team is not as wealthy or just hasn't got the experience.
Or the quality of the better teams. Yeah.
You get some surprises though when they come up. Like, for example, Leeds, when they won the championship, they came up and just really brought it to the teams last season. The season before that, it was Sheffield.
Yeah, and they both looked at home, didn't they, in their first seasons?
Premier League teams.
Yeah.
And of course, they got some history behind them as well. Did I say Sheffield and put them history behind them?
Yes.
Sheffield does have history behind them, to be fair.
Let's compare Sheffield's and Leeds' history.
Sheffield's and Leeds. What I meant was Leeds and Wolves. Wolves actually do have a bit of a history.
Oh, they do.
Wolves definitely have some decent history in there, and they did the same thing. They came up and they really matched the punches of the bigger teams. Of course, they could end up like the other 2 teams that Leeds came up with last season, who just weren't good enough to come back.
They just weren't ready.
No, they weren't ready.
Yeah.
Then, of course, like we said, most of the league is really got to be wary of relegation, but usually there's a handful of teams that are just, I guess, the favourites to join the relegation battle.
And obviously, not obvious to them.
It could be.
No.
Maybe it's obvious.
We can't assume. The teams that usually go in that bracket are the worst performing teams of the previous season, as well as you look at managerial changes, if key players have been sold, and if there's any sort of disharmony amongst the playing group. Those are the sorts of teams you'd want to try to put in the relegation battle, taking into account how good the team is itself.
Yeah, of course.
That's obviously goes without saying.
Yeah, turmoil at Man City. Will they get relegated?
You wouldn't have thought so.
I don't think so. This season, those roles are filled by Newcastle, Burnley, and Crystal Palace. For different reasons.
Don't worry about the caveat.
No, it's fine. There's always a caveat. We're not saying these teams are going to get relegated because in fact, we're probably saying they're not going to get relegated just because of they've been down this road before. It's just they're the favourites by the bookies, and as the season goes on, it's a long season.
It's a long season, and they're likely to be in the battle for relegation. They're likely to make you worry about it.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Just thinking about it, that's something that puts them into a special category of their own. And trust me, as the season goes on, there will be other teams that go into this category. So then you can start thinking about it when you go for those other teams. Moving up a notch, we're looking at the teams that are looking for safety. In the last video, the similar thing was the stable teams, we called them, I believe. The
established teams. One that you'd expect to be in the Premier League for a while.
Yeah. And we got that wrong, and we've copped a bit of flack since then.
Deservedly so.
And it is funny to look back on.
But to be fair to us, I mean, Stoke were pretty established, weren't they?
They were established.
Yeah.
And so were West Brom.
They're just hard to beat at home as well.
We're going to need a therapy session for this
rainy
one.
nights at Stoke.
Yeah, the rainy nights at Stoke.
That's why you can never predict what's going to happen.
Southampton was actually the least established of the three, but they did the best. They almost got relegated too, but they're actually in that category this season as well. As the team,
they could,
and they could get relegated this season. It's more than possible. They'll definitely make you think about it. All right, the teams that go into this category looking for safety. All right, they don't have enough ambition to go for the Champions League place, which can be good because it means they take losses a lot better, and they don't go on those huge losing streaks because they're expecting results not to go their way, and it's easier to bounce back from them. This is just the thing. We move on. What was that, Cos?
Managing expectations.
Yes, they know how to manage expectations.
They're not going to be like, oh, damn it, we lost to Manchester City away from home.
We're never going to make Champions League now.
Good place to be. Managing the highs and the lows.
So these teams are pretty decent, but decent doesn't quite cut it in the Premier League anymore. So they just know. They play within themselves, put it that way. Newcastle more or less fell into this category last season, but they were still looking behind them. So,
well, Newcastle hit a run of form.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, which got them out of the jam that they were in.
And those are the kind of margins we're looking at here. So Newcastle's close to getting into this group too. The teams that are in the group this season, though, as we mentioned, Southampton, Wolves, who were in the European places last season,
they were.
But they've sort of died off a bit. They've lost the Holy Spirit as well. So big hit.
Nuno Espirito Santo.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that.
Yes.
In case you're wondering if we're not religious nuts.
They've lost a few players too, so that's obviously going to hurt them. And of course, we've got a funny team in Brighton.
Brighton.
They just... How do you describe them, Cod?
Well, they're a team that are good to watch. They play beautiful football. They're fun to watch, but they're just trash.
A Honda Jazz with a Mercedes-Benz engine.
On paper, they're average, but then when you
That's
watch
where the Jazz comes in.
Yeah, but when you watch them play, they play a nice brand of football. They're fun to watch.
But they also never fail to disappoint, just like a Mercedes. They feel like they're improving, though, right?
But look, they are.
So surely they'll come good this season. Surely. There's no way they could get relegated. Just like West Brom and Stoke. No way.
You played too nice of football to get relegated.
And the last one on the menu for this group, potentially going better and beyond, is Leeds, of course. The survivors of last season's promotion.
Leeds aren't content. They want to be establishing themselves and going even further.
They are realistic, though. They do see what's ahead of them, and
it's a very different league to where they were before they got relegated. So.
And it will make a lot more sense once you see the teams that we're going to talk about next. The next group is what we like to call the European challengers, because they're still mid-table teams, but they have potential to upset some of the teams that are in the lower European spot. Usually
there's a mid-table team that we'd associate as a mid-table team that actually qualify for Europe.
It'd be like Wolves, the other team.
Yeah. The other season, yeah.
Because qualifying, it's not the end of the deal. You qualify for Europe. That doesn't mean that suddenly you're going to keep your form up, because Europe is a hard slog.
It is, because you've got extra fixtures to contend with on top of the cup fixtures as well.
And the travelling.
The travelling, yes, because especially in the Europa League, you can end up in places like Kazakhstan,
good old Kazakhstan,
Uzbekistan,
or eastern parts of Russia. Although you don't get too far east, but it's still so far.
If you're in Russia,
and cold.
You're pretty eastern, aren't you?
It's like an 11-hour trip.
Yeah.
So you might as well be going to China. For some of the trips, that's like time zone wise, you're almost getting to China.
11-hour trip.
Burnley actually did this a while back. They were playing in Europe. They did all right. In Birmingham, actually, Birmingham got relegated, and
well, Birmingham made Europe because they won the Cullen Cup, and
they got relegated. So they were actually a championship club playing in Europe. But this season we've got West Ham. What sets these teams apart from the teams below them, directly below them, in the most recent group, is they want to go places. They have belief that their team is destined for better things. Let's just say.
Yeah, like we said though. Playing in Europe, it's going to be hard to maintain that form and get back into it. So
West Ham are actually similar to Newcastle in the sense that they don't have a huge, trophy cabinet, but they do have a big fan base, and they are very, let's call them entitled. I'm ready to feel the wrath of these fans. They expect better things from their club. If things aren't going well on the pitch, they will let their players know. So that's just why home games aren't necessarily fun all the time for the players. But in fact, I'm pretty sure in our last video we talked about West Ham not being the home team.
If you don't like your house or your home, West Ham's your team.
Having history helps. It builds a fuel towards what you need to just have that consistency throughout the season to keep churning out these wins, even if things don't quite go your way. You gotta have a little bit of entitlement there. You gotta feel like those European spots, we should be there. That should be us.
A bit of arrogance. You need it.
You need to have it.
You need to have a little bit of it.
And in the past, teams that fall into this category now used to be pushing for the Champions League spots and even pushing for the title, depending on which era you want to go to. Now, they're pretty much settling for challenging the Europa League spots. That's how high the standard of the Premier League is now. At the moment, we've got two of England's most successful clubs, actually. In terms of titles won, one of them has won 9 titles, one of them won 7. I think they're in the top 5 of titles won, plus a lot of cups in there as well. We're talking about Everton and Aston Villa. Both of them have things going for them, both things going against them. Although the big difference between them is Aston Villa just came up from the Championship a couple seasons ago. Everton have not been relegated, although they've played with relegation a few times.
They have in their history,
in their past. Another thing that they both got is that they basically haven't won. They haven't won any trophies since the 80s. So
really?
They were very strong in the 80s, but they haven't won anything at all. Not even a League Cup, not even an FA Cup, nothing. I don't know how many finals they've made in that time, but look, it's been hard for them. But they got that pride behind them, and Aston Villa actually won most of their trophies before World War One. So
they had their time.
Yeah, they've got their trophies, but in recent history, a brief stint in the 80s is all they got to lean on.
At least they got to lean on something.
So these are the kinds of teams that go for these spots, and as we said, they're eyeing off the European spots, which currently are held by the following types of teams. So the teams in this tier are in and around the Europa League spots, or now the Europa Conference spots, which Cos wasn't even aware of until a few seconds ago.
I think it's a silly idea.
There's the 52-year-old Cos coming out. Sorry, 82.
That's fair. I was about to say,
I'm not that young.
Yeah.
But even though these teams are in these spots, they don't want to be there. They want higher things. They want to push into the Champions League spots. Not just because of the prestige, slightly easier fixtures, slightly easier fixture lists. The games are just slightly further apart more often. It still sucks.
It's the ambition of these clubs. That's what separates it.
That, and plus, they get better players coming their way. They get just more ambitious.
Well, they're just a more attractive place to be.
Yeah, exactly.
For players to come,
Again, the standard is so high. This used to be a spot where the teams that were sort of looking at stability they'd have a chance for getting into these spots. So
it's so competitive that someone has to miss out, and like
a lot have to miss out.
Yeah, and they're all good enough to be probably playing in these competitions, but you just can't always make it.
Some of the teams in this group are sort of the veterans. They've sort of been in and around. They've had their taste of Champions League football, and they want to get back into it. They want to be regulars there. But others are sort of breaking glass ceiling. The glass ceiling breaking. Exceptionaire. Is that a word?
What's going on?
We have an elite glass ceiling breaker. A team that's just come from nowhere.
Well, West Ham did it last season.
It used to happen more often, but now it's just a rarer thing to see. Newcastle sort of broke out of the blocks ages ago as well. A long time ago.
That was the Alan Shearer days.
Blackburn obviously did their glass ceiling breaking when they won the title.
With Alan Shearer.
So you get teams like that. Nowadays it's a bit of a longer game. Teams need to progress. They need to make shrewd acquisitions. Play smart and have a bit of luck as well sometimes. And Leicester have filled that role this season, last season. They've done well. They've won the title.
Leicester have been incredible, really. Talk about a club that's come from nowhere and then just won the league, and then they've stayed at the top as well.
Yeah,
the
last couple of seasons they've pretty much been at the top two spots, and it's fallen away a bit at the end just because they had a harder fixture list at the end. But they're really putting it to the really top teams. For anyone who hasn't heard about Leicester, you should have by now. But a reason you might not have is because they've only been in the Premier League for probably half the Premier League's existence. They're in and out.
Yeah.
The last time they came up was 2014-15, where they almost got relegated. Had a really strong finish to the season, and then just casually.
They just kept going. I can't imagine that what happened in the off season. It's just like they just met up. Just keep winning. It's easy. We've worked it out. They just won the league.
I think they had a 9-point buffer. I think it was.
Oh, they won
11.
They ended up winning in a canter.
Leicester, who had never won a title in their existence, won that title, and they've done all right since then. They've stabilised, and in the last couple of seasons they finished 5th. And last season they won the FA Cup for the first time in the history as well. So
yeah, they've been great.
They've basically done everything that Tottenham wanted to do when they were building themselves up. Now the other clubs that are in this category are the clubs that are, well, they're not trying to break the ceiling. They're trying to get broken into, basically. The mainstays are, in this case, we've called them the has-beens. It's not always the case, but in this case it is, slightly, currently, at least for the moment. Tottenham and Arsenal fall into this category.
They're trying to hold their position, basically.
And it's freaking hard
to do. But they're doing it, but it's hard to do.
Yes. Well,
Arsenal didn't make Europe, did they?
Yeah, well, Arsenal is making a slow, steady climb back up. They've got a manager, they're going for the long haul. They've picked up a guy who's got zero managerial experience, but 3.5 years under arguably the best manager in the world. Some are saying the best manager in the history of football.
That's ridiculous.
He's not even Italian.
He's got an Italian name.
So maybe that's enough.
Yeah, but he's got to embrace the Italian.
And the Holy Spirit has moved to Tottenham. So
yes.
So that's a completely contrasting position.
Wolves' loss is Tottenham's gain.
Huge loss. Yeah, that's pretty much the setup. That you've got these teams that are just used to being there, and this could easily be a club who was fighting for the title only 5 seasons ago, which Tottenham was. Arsenal definitely wasn't, but Tottenham definitely was fighting for the title 5 years ago. So things can change very quickly, and this is where you could end up. One thing I think you should notice by now is that as we go up these tiers, the expectations go much higher.
The pressure's different. It's like if you're in a relegation, it's for the long haul. It's like pressure over a certain amount of time. Whereas if you're at the top, it's one game. We've got to win this game.
Every game.
It's a failure.
Every game.
It's like
every game. Yeah. We're playing against Manchester City. Still got to win.
That's a stretch.
That's a stretch, yeah.
But if you're playing like
anyone else, though,
if you're playing a team,
if you're at home, although beating Man City at home is also a stretch.
Leeds did it.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But as you get higher, even though the wins are more constant, the value you get for those wins are so much less. It's just not worth as much. And sometimes in the relegation battles, even the 1-0 loss, it can be a sign of hope.
Yeah, if you're at the top, the victory is where you finish. Not actually winning a game.
Yeah,
it's actually where you finish.
There's
that's the victory.
Team that's fighting for the Champions League spots got to win like 20 games, right? So you'd think, 20 wins. That's
pretty good.
That's a lot more to celebrate than 8 wins, right? None of those wins are celebrations.
No, a win is like, all right, we won, we did what we were supposed to do, and that's it.
Whereas every one of those 8 wins for that relegation threatened team is a party.
It's a completely different vibe.
Yeah, every weekend
way.
you get the 3 points. It's a cruise. But now we're moving into the highest echelon, the top 4 battle, effectively, I guess. But it's also the title race. Right now, it's gotten to the point now in the Premier League where if you're not pushing for the title, then you're not going to make top 4. That's what
basically.
That's what we've hit. It's sort of gotten to the stage now where just getting into the top 4 is such a relief.
It's like, well, at least we made the top 4.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We made the top 4.
Because it is competitive.
The teams that are in there know, like if they're making the top 4, they know it's not enough to just make the top 4. They know that they got to be pushing for 3, 2, 1, eventually the title. You
got to be aiming for, the title just to be safe in making the top 4.
Currently the 2 teams that are sort of trailing in the wake, they're not quite title contenders, but they're still threatening to push there. Manchester United and Chelsea. They do things in a very different way. Manchester United going the old school dynasty manager. Did I say Manister?
You did. You're a wordsmith today.
Both of these teams are taking a different approach to their managers. One of them going for the dynasty manager process, whereas the other one doesn't really care much for that. I mean, they tried. They went with the old school boy, Frank Lampard project. The project's been thrown about so many times.
Now it gets too emotional.
And then 2 years later, bang, he's gone. No titles, no trophies, bang.
Too emotional. We can't do it.
Gone.
We want to do it, but we can't do it.
That's Chelsea's basically plan A. Other than Mourinho, no manager's been there for longer than 2 seasons. Sorry, they've done well.
They've won a few titles and
a lot of trophies. They won 2 more Champions Leagues than Manchester City, so they're doing something right. Manchester United went with the old school approach. They're doing the slow and steady, a bit like Arsenal, but they're in a later stage of their development. Obviously, they've broken into the top 4 and they're slowly building. They've made the top 4 actually 3 of the last 4 seasons, and they've made the Champions League as well 3 of the last 4 seasons.
Admittedly, they did look very good at times last season.
Yeah,
so there is promise there.
And it's clear every season that they have improved. You don't.
Yeah, you can.
Whereas
they've made good signings as well.
Yeah, well, Chelsea can chop and change. They look good, and then suddenly they go into a downturn of form. Tottenham did the same. They did well, but then they sort of stagnated a bit, and then they just fell off a cliff. Arsenal fell off a very big cliff. But Manchester United seem to be building, and they're going well. So there's hope that they can progress. And really for these 2 teams, it's about, can they take that extra step? Can they have the consistency throughout the season to challenge for the actual title itself? That's the question that a lot of different teams in different seasons will be asking. But of course, then you get to the real title challenge. All right, let's paint a picture here. We're not just talking about this season or the last few seasons, just in general. There's points in time, and more often than not, this is the case. It's sort of like 2 titans fighting at the top. They've got some serious rivalries going on. It's not about, historical rivalries and things like that. I mean, Liverpool and Manchester United go back till, the ends of time, or the 70s really, but football didn't exist before then. Manchester United had a rivalry with Leeds, but those teams change, right? Like in the Premier League era, it's pretty much just been Manchester United against Arsenal at one point. Before them it was Newcastle as well. They had a bit of a biff going.
The main ones have been Arsenal and Chelsea.
And then of course Manchester City just near the end of Alex Ferguson's reign.
That's correct. But the constant has been Manchester United.
Before Ferguson retired, of course.
Yes.
So you can think of it as a sort of protagonist-antagonist kind of relationship. If in the past Manchester United was the antagonist, it was always the new challenger coming in. It was Newcastle, it was Arsenal, it was Chelsea. And, they won a few games here and there, a few titles there. But the constant was definitely Manchester United. If that was the antagonist back then, the antagonist now is Manchester City. Since United retired, I'm going to say, not Ferguson retired, since Manchester United retired. It really is a different club. It has been different.
His influence has been, you can't question.
And I guess the protagonist, depending on which team you go for, would be Liverpool.
I guarantee you a lot of people are not happy with Liverpool.
No, exactly. Especially Manchester United.
If you want to be a Man United fan, you're just going to have to cop it for a little bit. Well, you may be getting in at a good time. Things might be changing.
Yeah, it could.
So you may have missed all that. Yeah.
This could be the golden era. They're the only team that have successfully hit their level.
Hit their level, yeah.
Because no one's hit 90 points.
In the past few seasons, it's been 90, 100 points, 98 points, 99 points. That's been the point teller to win the league.
98 points to win it, 97 to come second. I mean, that's rough. And those were the 4 biggest points tallies in the Premier League's history. So it was only good enough for 3 premierships and 1 second place. So the standard is very high at the moment.
It is very high.
And even in the COVID-affected season, where Manchester City started off, I think they were 9th, 10 games.
They had a slow start and they ended up with 84 points.
84 points.
Yeah.
So if they'd not had that slow start, they would have been 90 plus again. Easy, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, basically the standard's gone to the point where a team needs to be able to put in a 10, 15 winning streak.
There's another level to hit. That's the thing.
And that's not just, winning against bad teams, because there are so many teams now, right?
No, I know.
You got to deal with, your title rivals. So let's just say Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea and Manchester United. Then you got Arsenal and Tottenham as well.
And Leicester.
Who are no bad. Leicester is a great team too.
Everton's a challenge.
Everton's pushing now as well. Yeah. West Ham's obviously been good. And then you get the bogey teams like Crystal Palace.
We got Aston Villa as well. They're pushing. Leeds are pushing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you mentioned, Crystal Palace. That's one team that can get a result against anybody on their day.
Yeah. And can also have a team get a result against them on any day.
Of course.
So that's Crystal Palace for you.
They're 50-50 team.
Yeah, 50-50 team. Explodes. It takes itself down as well as you. So that's basically what you're dealing with once you get to the upper end. And so if your expectations are that high, unless you're winning a trophy, and there's a chance you will, then again, no joy.
It comes back to the lifestyle.
No joy.
What lifestyle do you want?
So that's a wrap for this guide of how to pick a Premier League team. Now, we just want to remind you that although we use the examples from this season, this can apply to other seasons as well. You might find Arsenal fighting for the title in 5 seasons' time. I doubt it, but it could happen. Tottenham the same. They could be battling to stay relevant in mid-table. Who knows?
Who knows?
Everton could be knocking on the door of the top 4.
Yep.
Manchester City could drop away when Pep Guardiola leaves and then become the new Chelsea.
Even Leicester, in 5 years' time, they could be relegated.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
And that's not even that hypothetical. That's actually a very possible scenario.
So
because we've seen teams do this well.
It's not an insult. It's like it's a legitimate thing.
This is just the Premier League. This is what happens.
Like Rayo Vallecano.
Nothing is like Rayo Vallecano in the Spanish League. Nothing is that terrible in the Premier League. If you like the Spanish League, send us some angry comments because we do not.
Got some great teams, but
the point is you can use this video and get a rough idea of what kind of expectations to have for your team and use it as a guide to help you manage your expectations, I guess, as we said at the start of the video. So this is just a guide for what to expect from teams, but if you want more details on what to expect from a specific team, we've made a video about what it takes to be a Liverpool fan. So if you'd like us to make a video about another team that you're interested in, set it into the comments, and the most popular teams we will do eventually. So if there's any clubs that you're interested in, you want to know a little bit more about them, hit us up in the comments.
We do read the comments and we aim to please. So the most popular comments and requests of a club will
that'll be our next video.
We'll definitely look to get around doing that and make it fun too. Don't just mention the big clubs. If you want to, don't be afraid to mention a lowly club in the league.
Yeah, and go across the continent. I mean, we're all big fans of Italy. We don't like the Spanish league, but we do like some Spanish teams.
Mainly Atletico Madrid.
Atletico Madrid.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to go to Germany, even Denmark, even Belarus. There's a team in Belarus.
The Netherlands.
I like talking about
Polish league.
If anyone asks about an Italian club from like the 3rd division, I think I'll be floored. I'll be floored in surprise and joy because I will talk.
Because we will make that video. We will make that video.
Yeah.
But that's just about a wrap. So
it is a wrap. Yeah.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you anyone who's been watching our other videos as well. Subscribing to our channel, we love it. Definitely, if you would like to see those other videos, subscribe, because we will not tell you when that video comes out. You'll have to wait on those notifications to do it for you. So please subscribe, like the video, comment, tell us what we can improve, tell us what you don't like, tell us if we got some facts wrong. We want to know it all.
And don't hesitate to be rude. We can take it.
Yeah, we can take it, definitely. But once again, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.